Hello Magic friends, DJ here, and I'm part of the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and today I want to talk about another set. They are coming out so quickly. This one is Jumpstart. Jumpstart's a very unique set. It's not traditional boosters. They're kind of pre-packaged decks, and you take two of them and you mix them together and you sort of play these mini drafts, kind of like Pack Wars. It sounds like a pretty fun concept, especially because there are other successful games out there like Smash Up that make this concept really, really fun. So I think it'll translate really well over to some casual games of Magic. And that's what a lot of us thought. This would be some casual Magic. And it turns out, no, there is some power level in this Jumpstart set. So let's take a look at some of the new cards that we have to play with in Commander. And let's talk about some of the insane reprints that we have in front of us. Let's start off in white. The first thing we got is Blessed Sanctuary. 3 white for an enchantment. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white unicorn creature token. So where does this belong? Number 1, unicorns. Just awesome. Okay, but number 2, how important is this first thing? Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control. Well, it's not something that we're willing to pay 5 mana for. This does combo with a lot of red-based removal spells, but Blessed Sanctuary isn't very much protection in our format. We have wraths that are not just based on damage. Very rarely will someone lightning bolt your 2-drop in our format. So if you're not comboing with it, that first ability is okay? But that second ability definitely can gain some traction. But you have to think, how many 2/2s do I need for this enchantment to be good? And the answer has to be something like 5 or 6. Because you really do need a lot of advantage out of these cards. I know that 5 2/2s for 5 mana is a very good rate, but you have to realize that these are coming over multiple turns, and 2/2s as you get into turn 7 and 8 become, well, way less important. I think that I could play this in a blink deck because it's just whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield in your control, make a war unicorn, you know? So we can have things go in and out of the graveyard like crazy, and so we might as well bring a lot of 2/2s along with it. I don't know if this is as big a payoff as I want in that style of deck, but definitely some unicorn synergy that we might want to pay attention to. Brightmare, 2 and a white for 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, tap up to 1 target creature. You gain life equal to that creature's power. You could be gaining a little bit of life. It's a good tempo card. I really like this for limited. I don't see it in Commander seeing much play. MAL the Blessed, 2 white for a 4/4 legendary creature unicorn. 3 generic mana to exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. 3 mana to blink is fine. Rune does it really well. Rune has a little bit more flexibility, but this seems to be just a fine rate. Eldrazi Displacer is a really good example of this too, and it turns out that 3 is the amount that you can pay to blink something. So thumbs up for that. It's not weirdly overcosted. Okay. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay Selesnya. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it instead. So you do not have to have any other unicorns in your deck to play this card. You do have to be green and white in your commander's color identity. One thing that trips people up all the time are these hybrid mana symbols. This Selesnya symbol means that there is a green pip in the text of this legendary creature. So if you play it in the command zone, it is Selesnya, and you cannot play it in a mono white deck. It has a green color identity. MEL has a lot of combo potential. I mentioned Eldrazi Displacer, the ability to, blink things out and have it come back in. It does have this restricted mana cost that MAL does not. It's just 3 generic. So if you have something that enters the battlefield and creates tokens, specifically 2 tokens, and you have an Ashnod's Altar, then you have infinite colorless mana. It creates 2 tokens. Let's say it's like Cloud Goat Ranger. Okay, it comes in and creates 3 tokens. Well, sacrifice 2 of those tokens for 4 colorless mana. Blink it. do that over and over again, you have infinite manas and infinite 1/1 Kithkins, so it's pretty easy to see how, 2 or 3 cards can come together and make something super powerful. By the way, pricing is all over the place, but the market might think that this is also powerful with a $35 price tag. The +1/+1 counter is good value, especially if it's in a +1/+1 counter deck. You can pair it with persist creatures, and that works really nicely. So there's going to be some synergy there. But I think a lot of the power comes with this 3 generic mana to exile target creature you control and return it to the battlefield. Seems really solid. Release Dogs is way more solid than you think. 4 mana for 4 bodies is actually pretty good. If you have any dog synergies, that could be interesting as well. People usually don't like playing at this rate. A lot of the cards out there are 2 mana for 2 bodies, but we're commander, so we might want to ramp up our token production, and so 4 mana for 4 bodies might be something that we're looking for. People regularly play like Goblin Rally and some of the other Goblin creators, and those have a rate of 5 mana for 4 bodies, and so Release the Dogs comes in at a pretty good price point. Steel Plume Marshal, 3 white for an amazing looking bird soldiers. Usually bird soldiers are a little bit creepy in my opinion. This one looks amazing. 5 mana 3/3 flyer, but whenever it attacks, other attacking creatures you control with flying get +2/+2. This is a really big anthem. Antheming +2/+2 is well worth 5 mana. You do have to attack with it, and it gives other attacking creatures. So you're definitely putting this in danger when you are antheming the rest of your squad. But I think that a lot of flyer decks are going to love this. I think it's going to be budget, and a lot of, Azorius flyer decks are budget decks. And so this is going to be a perfect fit. Stonehaven Pilgrim, 1 white for 2/2. When it attacks, if you control an artifact or enchantment, it gets +1/+1 and gains lifelink until end of turn. This could be a beater. I don't think that it's going to be really strong in our format, but I think that this is going to be sneaky good, and people might start including it in cube lists and battle boxes and some other stuff. I'm kind of excited about that. Supply Runners is a dog, 5 mana for 2/2, enters a battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control, and we've seen this effect on other spells as well, and we're not really excited about it. For example, the Rhino. I probably just need to look it up. It's a type, I think it's a Rhino. Yeah. Let's look up the green Rhino. That is probably not going to be very expensive because it does not see very much play. A lot of Rhinos, by the way, will add +1/+1 counters. It's pretty cool. But yeah, this is 57 cents from Commander 2018. It's a 5 mana 4/4 Trampler. So already way better stats. If you have your commander, you get a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, including this Rhino, every single combat phase. Okay. Hardly ever sees play. 57 cents. Mediocre card. So just getting a one-off effect is mediocre. Not very good. Trusty Retriever, look at this little doggo. 4 mana, enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it, return target artifact or enchantment from your graveyard to your hand, Okay. Moving on. Archaeo Mender, 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. I'm actually surprised this didn't already exist. I think that this is not going to be a staple, but Archaeomancer, the enchantment returning one, we use that. I've played that before, and it's fine. So if we are a very artifact heavy deck, then you might want a really budget version of Eternal Witness for your deck. So I think this is solid. This is amazing. Bruvac, the Grandiloquent. Love it. Is 2 and a blue for a 1/4 legendary human advisor. If an opponent would mill 1 or more cards, they mill twice that many cards instead. Oh man, this is the mill general that people are going to be so excited about, because I'm already excited by that. The cards that we're looking for, Traumatize. I did not spell that. Trauma. Don't make fun of me, internet. There we go. Traumatize is 5 mana for puts half their library into their graveyard, and then with this commander, the other half goes in. It's pretty great. There's also a big Kraken that when it attacks, you mill half your library, so that's another good combo as well. But mill players rejoice. You have one of the best commanders out there right now, because Phoenix was like a combo mill player. Like I never milled people out with my Phoenix deck. Instead, it just comboed with a few other cards and I won that way. So I think that Bruvac is going to be a true mill commander, and I'm excited about it. Corsair Captain, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human pirate. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Other pirates you control get +1/+1. Pirate decks, yes. This is actually pretty sneaky in a lot of other decks too. Some decks really do want treasure tokens. They want artifacts on the battlefield. I love the ability to sort of have this just be a 2/2 for 2 Lord that gives you this kind of like buyback thing. It's pretty good. So play this in your pirate decks. I don't think it's going to be good in other places, but I am excited about this Inaz the Gale Force. This is a 5 mana Djinn. It's a 4/4 flyer. So we've got some pretty good stats going on there. But 2 and a Azorius, attacking creatures with flying get +1/+1 until end of turn. This is something that you can activate multiple times. So in the late game, you can sink 9 mana into this and give all of your attacking creatures with flying +3/+3. And imagine that other bird general dude and pumping your team +2/+2. So we're seeing some pretty big damage being dealt out with evasion in these types of decks. This is another really good ability. Whenever 3 or more creatures you control with flying attack, each player gains control of a non-land permanent of your choice, controlled by the player to their right. Yes. I am 100% building this deck. I already had an Azorius Flyers sort of budget deck that I loaned out to a friend. And so I'm going to be taking that list and transforming it, and Inez is going to be in there because this is just so much fun. Like you play like a Spectral Procession, and then you play this on 5 and suddenly you attack with 3 creatures and you're like, bloop, 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 bloop. Oh my gosh. And like you just give them a stupid 1/1 spirit and you could get anything. This is amazing. Deck list incoming, because this is great. Oh my gosh. This is another amazing Sphinx. Ormo's Archive Keeper. 4 blue for a 5/5 legendary creature Sphinx with flying. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead put 5 +1/+1 counters on this Sphinx, and then you can pay 1 blue to discard 3 cards with different names and draw 5 cards. Okay, so this divination rummage thing on there is actually quite good. The place that it gets you is that you can't discard like 2 islands. Okay, so this is going to reward people that have diverse mana bases maybe, or you pitch real cards, but pitching 3 to draw 5 is very, very good. This top ability of drawing a card while you have no cards in it, like you don't, like basically instead put 5 +1/+1 counters on it. I think this is amazing. Also, there's the lovely combo of, if you have an empty library, you could theoretically pay this activated ability and draw 5 cards and put 25 counters on this, making it a 20/20. Oh my gosh. Wait, no, making it a 20. It's just draw 5 cards, 5 counters, making it a 30/30. Oh, this is silly. I really like the Sphinx tribal and like all the books they've got going on. I think this is going to go into your Sphinx decks really nicely. And it's kind of surprisingly good. I mean, here's the thing. In order for this to be better than just a 5/5 flyer, you need to activate this ability, which means you're paying 6 and then you're paying 3 more, and then you're discarding relevant cards and you're hoping to draw stuff later. So this is a late game engine, goes into Sphinx decks. It's not going to be something that's over the top. And I would really, really like to see someone go crazy with this first ability. Okay, Scholar of the Lost Trove. 5 blue, that's 7 CMC for a 5/5 flying Sphinx. When Scholar of the Lost Trove enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant, sorcery, or artifact card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If an instant or sorcery were put in the graveyard this way, exile instead. So what I like to think about this is like, this is the kind of torrential Gear Hulk I want. Because we have really, really powerful sorceries. Like Gearhulk was only limited to instants, but we have so many powerful sorceries. Everyone was like, oh man, I really wanted to target sorceries. Well, now we have a 7 mana big Sphinx. Sadly, it doesn't have flash, but it can just come down and cast your big sorcery. And there are some crazy sorceries out there, like game-winning sorceries. I also like that it can cast an artifact too. Like that is pretty powerful as well. I mean, you can think of a lot of artifacts that will change a game. Scholar of the Lost Trove is definitely big and splashy, but that's what Commander's all about. I'm a big fan of this. Again, in a Sphinx deck, if you were to make this 5 mana because it's been reduced by 2 from Unesh, then this becomes like real good, real good. Okay, Kel's Fight Fixer. This is a tricky one to evaluate. 2 black for a legendary Azra Warlock. Love the Azra creature type. Ooh, 20 bucks. Sorry, it's a 4/3 with Menace. Okay, good stats, by the way. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may pay Dimir. Again, so this is a black and a blue card for its color identity. When you do, draw a card. 1 mana, sacrifice a creature. Kel's Fight Fixer gains indestructible until end of turn. So, it doesn't have a free mana sacrifice. So you have to pay 1, which is a little bit tricky. You know, I was thinking about this in terms of Yahenni. Yahenni has been really powerful in a lot of sacrifice decks, but it has that free sacrifice outlet on it. So I don't know if this is going to fill that niche very well, but it can definitely do other stuff because whenever you sacrifice a creature, you can pay Dimir if you do draw a card. So maybe this is a slower sacrifice deck where you're gaining lots of card advantage. You're not trying to like flood the board and then sacrifice everything in one go as soon as you have a Zulaport Cutthroat out and win the game. Instead, this is a, well, I got my ETB value out of it. I'm going to sacrifice it, give this indestructible, draw a card, sort of start churning through my deck really slowly and deliberately. But this is sneaky though, because this attacks really well as well. 4/3 Menace for 4 comes in and hits pretty hard, and then being able to give it indestructible. I'm also excited about this card. Very, very cool. Nocturnal Feeder, 3 mana 2/1 flyer. When it dies, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. I also think that this is pretty sneaky good. People were talking about the 2/1 snake from Ixalan and how they've really liked that effect in some aristocrats decks. And so Nocturnal Feeder might be a little bit of a step up in that direction. Obviously not like a slam dunk. Oh my gosh, $57. This is not right. Okay. Tiny Bones, Trinket Thief. Tiny Bones is a skeleton rogue. It's a 1/2. And at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent discarded a card this turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. 4 black, each opponent with no cards in hand loses 10 life. That is a crazy activated ability, but I can see how this would slot into so many different decks. Nath the Guiltleaf, or some of those Rakdos discard decks. Tiny Bones could probably lead his own deck as well, especially because it's got a card engine built in. You pay 2 mana, comes down early, and then all of your discard, well, at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent discarded a card, you draw a card and you lose life. It's each end step. So if there is any sort of discarding, like let's say someone wheels or someone loots, bam, you're drawing a card and you're losing a life. And that engine can really be built around. So I think that this will be one of the most successful discard generals because it comes down early and really affects the board. But then also, you could just have this sitting in your command zone, just sitting there, like, you know, and you're playing all these other Waste Knots and Miser's End and stuff like that. And no one's paying attention to Tiny Bones, just sitting there. And then it's just play it, activate it, 10 to you guys, go. You know, that's a big, for 8 mana, if you have this big 10 damage whoosh to the entire table, if you set it up right, sounds very fun. Look at this little guy. I like Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones is a good one. All right, Witch of the Moors. 3 black for a 4/4 human warlock with Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature, and you return up to 1 target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Wow. That's just gaining life. Like, you gain life all the time. There are tons of decks that gain life. So all you have to do is gain life, and then you edict everyone, and you get like a zombify. This is very strong, and I can see this being sort of like a Marin. I don't know, Marin's probably not a good example of it. It's just really good. 5 mana 4/4 Death Touch. It's also super creepy. Have you guys seen this art? It's like all over the place because it's got like magic and poison apples and a walking cane and like a knife. It's pretty cool. I can definitely see this going into a lot of different little life gain decks. All right, let's move on to red. We got Chained Brute. This devil is super cheap for its power and toughness. 2 mana for a 4/3, but it doesn't untap during your untap step. Instead, you have to pay 1, sacrifice another creature, and then it untaps. I don't think that this is going to be worth it. I'm pretty sure that someone out there is going to like put an enchantment on it and then like create a token and sacrifice and untap it or some crazy thing like that. But I think I want a little bit more reliability and power out of my sacrifice outlets or my beaters. Okay, Immolating Gyre. 4 red for sorcery. It deals X damage to each creature and planeswalker you don't control, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. I don't get this card. I don't get why it's a mythic. I think that it's a fine board wipe, but I mean, I would rather have Chain Reaction or Blasphemous Act or, I mean, a lot of other cards. I'm a big fan of Hour of Devastation. It deals 5 mana, 5 damage, and then it takes away Indestructible to creatures and non-bolus planeswalkers. So that would be my go-to. I think that this is too unreliable. And I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's mythic just because they want to really limit board wipes in this game, in this Jumpstart, because like just the way it plays. So maybe it's mythic because of how it interacts with the rest of the Jumpstart. Lightning Phoenix. 2 and a red for a 2/2 flying haste. It can't block. At the beginning of your end step, if an opponent was dealt 3 or more damage this turn, you may pay red. If you do, return Lightning Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is pretty good. I mean, I don't think that many of us have Phoenix decks. I don't think a lot of us are excited about it, but I think that this is better than Chandra's Phoenix. And so I think that this might actually make it into some, aggressive lists, might even make it into my cube list. I'm kind of excited about it. What I mean by aggressive is maybe this will see play in like Canadian Highlander or something like that. Okay. 2/1 prowess for 2, thumbs up. Living Lightning, 4 mana, 3/2. When it dies, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, this is fine too, but not big commander stuff. When we're talking about big commander stuff, we're going to be talking about Muxus Goblin Grandee. Muxus is 4 red for a 4/4 Goblin Noble. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library, put all goblin creature cards with converted mana cost, 5 or less from among them, onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Oh my gosh, so you're basically getting 6 free goblins if you stack your library. By the way, Goblin Recruiter. Goblin Recruiter is so good. You could just basically take any number of goblin cards and just stick them on top of your library. And so you could just stack it with 6 of the best goblins. And then I wonder if you could, with a Goblin Recruiter and you cast Muxus, if you could just win the game, because 6 goblins is a lot of goblins. Like that might be enough to sort of go off and just kill everyone. I'm super duper impressed by this. When it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each goblin you control. When this finally gets to attack, you're gonna control a lot of goblins. I mean, I'm curious about the combination of goblins that you can set up with this, but it is good. I'm super duper excited about Muxus. It might even, I don't think it's gonna beat out Krenko because Krenko's so good, but just imagine if what this could do to goblins. I mean, one thing that I always like to talk about, there's a pretty big impactful goblin card from Game Night that I really liked. I'll look it up while I'm talking. And what I always said that I really like about certain goblins is that whenever you have big goblins, it's really, really good for Commander because we have in general a higher curve than everyone else. It's this Goblin Goliath. That's 6 CMC for a 5/4, creates, you know, 3 goblins, doubles damage. Like, it's just a big old goblin, you know. And I really like the idea of 6 mana goblins because we need bigger, splashier goblins at the top end of our curve for Goblin Tribal. So many of us, we're leaning on Siege Gang Commander as our top end when every other goblin's like a 1/1 for 1 or, you know, 3 mana Rabble Master or something like that. So I really like that the tribe is getting a little bit bigger so that we can play with sort of these big, fun, splashy cards. Okay. Sethron Hurloon General. This is the Minotaur General you've been waiting for. Let's build those Minotaur decks. $17, it's crazy. 3 red for a legendary creature, Minotaur Warrior for a 4/4. When Sethron Hurloon General or another non-token Minotaur enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/3 red Minotaur creature token. Okay, so on its own, this is a 5 mana 4/4 with a 2/3. That's 5 mana, 6/7 across 2 bodies with an activated ability that gives Minotaurs you control +1/+0 and menace and haste until end of turn. Whoa. Like, this is just a good card. This is like, just to have this come down and create another body along with it and being able to pay 3, give your Minotaurs +1/+0 in haste. And this is also the kind of thing that you can pump multiple times. You can put more mana into it. Yeah, this is going to make Minotaurs good. Not great, but good, Super impressed by that Minotaur. Okay. Prankster, 2 and a red for a 3/2. Basically, if it's your turn, it has first strike. So like if you're attacking, it has first strike. Whenever another creature dies, deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. This is another pinger, and we like pingers. This is just target player, and so it's not this general Blood Artist effect, but some people are looking for pingers, and there's lots of different types, and this is whenever another creature dies. So that means they're bored too. I think that this is going to go really, really well in Rakdos, the Showstopper. Because Rakdos, the Showstopper, is a 6 mana big old demon, and it kills everything. It actually gives everything a 50-50 chance of living, except for devils, imps, and demons. And this is a devil. So whenever I see a devil, I think, this Rakdos Showstopper deck out there is getting a little bit better. This board wipe from the battlefield. And I can imagine a devil deck being really about damage. And so you play Rakdos, half the creatures die, and then you have all this damage to ping down the creature that didn't die or aim it at someone's face. Attacks is a 3/2 first strike too. I like it. I like that. That's good. All right, another devil. I just mentioned where devils go. 2 and a red for a 2/3 legendary creature devil. Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn and it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 red devil that has that devil text on it. Whenever this creature dies, it does 1 damage to every target. Whenever one or more devils you control attacks 1 or more players, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random. Hang on. So, if you are attacking someone, then basically what you could theoretically do is attack each opponent. And then you say, all right, everyone's essentially drawing a card and discarding a card. They're looting. And when you do, you create 3 new devils. I mean, you are giving them card advantage, but you are definitely like making yourself a pretty relevant and pretty big army. All right. Green, Allosaurus Shepherd. 1 green for a 1/1 elf shaman. Can't be countered. Green spells can't be countered. Oh, if you are running up against counter decks in your meta, you just got your answer. Just play this and people are they're gonna have such a hard time countering your stuff. I like counter control, being able to address that. Also, it's got a big mana outlet. 4 green till end of turn. Elf creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/5, and they're also dinosaurs. So I think that this needs to be, you need to have this green spells can't be countered to want this in your deck, because this activation cost is way too big, especially when you have other effects in green that are way better than it, like a Crater of Behemoth or Azuri or something along those lines. So I think that you need to be really slotting this in against people that are countering your spells. This is a card that's going to see a lot of hype. Branching Evolution is 2 and a green for an enchantment. If one or more +1/+1 counters we put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. It's the +1/+1 counter half of Doubling Season. This is great. This is exactly what we're looking for. So many +1/+1 counter decks that can't afford Doubling Season are going to be so happy that Branching Evolution exists. I'm a huge fan. 2 green for Naiath of the Dire Hunt. This is a human warrior. Again, 4 CMC, 3/3. Whenever one or more of your creatures you control fight or become blocked, draw a card. I've seen this text on other cards. Whenever they become blocked, to draw a card. There's not a lot of blocking that often happens in Commander, honestly. You don't have combat happening as often as you say. Fighting is also not a thing that happens all the time, so I don't feel like I'm going to be always activating this ability over and over again. Let's keep reading. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 2 and a Gruul. If you do, double target creature's power until end of turn. That creature must be blocked this combat if able. Now that I like. Doubling creature's power is really, really big. No pun intended. So you have effects like Berserk or Xenagos and all of these things that really care about power. Like you have creatures that care about power like Galta or Godzilla, card that's being reprinted in here that I really like, that is Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. They all care about power. So you can synergize this with a lot of different cards in Gruul, in green. And so I'm excited to, play a big dumb creature like Galta. Xenagos doubles it. This doubles it and make something block it. And finally, and you're drawing a card off of it as well. It just feels like big and stupid and powerful. And so these doubling abilities are really good. $50. I don't know if this is worth $50, but I do like the art. Reminds me of Princess Mononoke. Obviously, it's a big wolf there. All right, Towering Titan. 4 green for a giant. It's a 0/0. Towering Titan enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total toughness of other creatures you control. Sacrifice a creature with Defender. All creatures gain trample until end of turn. This is really interesting because a lot of decks that deal with Defender, like Arcades decks, or in some cases the Abzan, Doran, the Siege Tower decks, a lot of them want only walls. They want things only with Defender. But this is just this big old creature. And I can see how this could come down for 6 mana and easily have 20 power and 20 toughness. Sacrifice another creature and you're swinging in with this giant and all your other walls and with Arcades and doing a lot of damage. This is pretty narrow mythic, but I think that people are going to try it out. It's going to be fun and splashy and it's going to win games. Okay. 1 mana for a 0/3, 5 and tap, sacrifice to deal 3 damage. No, that feels like removal. Anyways. These bluffs, okay? Basically, they enter the battlefield tapped. As they enter the battlefield, choose a color other than red, and then you basically get to build your own Guildgate of your tap land. So this one will always tap for red, but whatever other color you choose. You need to be in a 3 or 4, 5 color deck for these to even be considered, because just a tap land is not good. But if you can play a tap land that you can choose the exact color that you need, then I can see these as really solid budget inclusions. I think that they're going to be super cheap in like the 10-cent range. And so I can see this going in budget 3-color decks and really helping out your mana base, especially like 4-color decks. So I'm like really excited about these inclusions. I think they're going to fix a lot of mana for very cheaply. Now, one of the things I'm most excited about is just the beautiful art on all of these things. Like, look, the planes, you have sort of the Boros Legion over here. You've got these weird feathers for these. Look at the unicorns coming out of stuff, like the weird duck with 4 things. Everyone was freaking out about this one. Look at the little dog hanging out in the field. Like, that is just adorable. People are going to go crazy for these lands. And I think this is a good way to do them too, like in this set. Like this set's a little bit goofier, so you can do things like make your lands a little bit goofier too. Like this is ridiculous. It's a book island. Come on, like you're pandering a little bit, but I love it. I'm gonna buy a bunch of these. I like all of them, honestly. Zombie, like, wouldn't this be great in a zombie? Like, wouldn't you play this in your zombie deck? I hope that they come in foil, because I would basically buy 30 of these and play them in a zombie deck so that all my lands looked beautiful and had zombies on them. That's just great. Same thing with this. Like, I like this is like this dragon. I like this one too, where it's like lightning bolts creating the mountains. There's weird ringy things. Let's see here. What's another good one? I know that there's some good ones. There's a dinosaur forest. There's a kitty cat forest. There's this like plants eating Elmer. Poor little dude. Okay. Now we're in reprints. I'm going to move really quickly through reprints and just point out them as I go through. Johnny's Chosen is already cheap, great with enchantments. Angel of Dire Hours overcosted, but sometimes you use it. I like Archon of Justice being really cheap, but specifically Cathar's Crusade. This is like an $8 card, and I want it to be like 3, so that's going to be a great inclusion in this deck. I also like Duelist Heritage. I think that this should be like a $1 card, and it got up to $3. It's surprisingly fun, and you're not playing enough Duelist Heritage in your deck. If we keep going down, we got good old boy Isamaru. If you want to build a dog deck, then that seems like the right one for you. Lena is really unimpressive, but Linvala, Keeper of Silence, can be very, very good. I mean, look at your play group and find out if activated abilities are a problem. I really wish that it was just any activated ability, not just creatures, but it does just hit your opponents, and we're talking about a $25 card. So this is a really, really solid inclusions right there. Mentor of the Meek, we always need more of those. White decks need card draw, and this getting cheaper and cheaper is going to be really important. Machias ended up being a little bit expensive too. I want to get this down in price. Deals really strongly with +1/+1 counters. Also has a single mana as like 1 CMC, so that it can be fetched up by a Ranger of Eos or Ranger Captain of Eos. Path to Exile being in this is great. We want this removal spell to be cheap, 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 because it is premier removal in our format. Rock's Faithmender works really well with gain life decks, and if you have a gain life deck, you might want that. It's just kind of a fun card, and it was a couple bucks, and it didn't need to be. Okay, Coastal Piracy seems way less good now that we have Reconnaissance Mission out and Biden of Thassa, so this really does need to become bulk for us to play it anymore. Blue actually had a lot of like these tempo cards that don't really work for us, but Kira is really great. I mean, we do need to defend our stuff, and there's a lot of single target removal in these decks, and so in just Commander in general, and so getting a $10 card and having it reprinted is really, really good. If we keep going down, I remember Rattle Chains for Spirits. Rhystic Study is just a slam dunk card. They needed a reprint, and the price tag on these was pretty crazy. You know, we're talking about $25 down to $20, and hopefully, you know, these get pretty inexpensive, but it's going to be annoying that there are more of these floating around, because it's so good. More people are going to play it, and more people are going to have to say, did you pay one? Love Sharding Sphinx in some decks, by no means an impressive card. If we keep going down, I like Whelming Wave, but again, not an expensive one. So if you see blue, I didn't mention a lot of different stuff out of blue. Black Market. Black Market was reprinted in the Mystery Boosters as well, and 2 Commander sets, so getting this down is going to be really important. Blood Artist, keep this price down, because it was growing more and more and more. So I want this to be a couple dollars, because it's a staple of these sacrifice formats, these sacrifice decks. And then Black also had Drana. Oh man, Drana is really solid. Not that expensive for like this really powerful, you know, legendary, but I think people weren't using Drana as much as they should, because this is just like a crazy anthem. You know, people need to remove Drana, or else it's just going to keep antheming your team over and over again and do a ton of damage. Entomber Exarch is a great budget pickup. It should be very cheap. Like, 12 cents. Oh, perfect. But I've really enjoyed using that card in Tumber Exarch to really get what we need. Basically, we return target creature from your graveyard to your hand, or you get to sort of hand attack one person. Falconwrath Noble, similar to Blood Artist, but not expensive at all. Exhume. I think this is a very fun card in our format, and it can be very powerful. You can abuse it, or it can be political, and I'm a big fan. Gulacaller Gisa was a little bit expensive as well. I'm sure that the price has gone down. Jeez, I mean, it was $19. It's way too much for just a silly card printed in a commander deck. But you get to sacrifice creatures and make tons of zombies. It's actually just a great card. Gonti, Lord of Luxury, not that expensive. Got down to 71 cents, 50 cents. Yeah, get this thing cheap. Play it in your black decks. Just an awesome card. Super, super fun. Harvesters of Souls is budget. Languish doesn't hit enough things in our format. Liliana's Reaver is mediocre and not expensive by any means. Ogre Slumlord is a favorite of mine, but not expensive. I'm looking for something specific. It's coming up. But Phyrexian Reclamation, hope this card gets really cheap. I find this to be a really solid engine. Pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Just being able to churn through your creatures and get them back over and over again is really solid. But this is the row that I'm most excited about. Ravenous Chupacabra is fine, but Reanimate. Get this card cheap. Got to $12, $11. If this can be $5, this reanimation effect is so good. 1 black mana, put target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Any graveyard, by the way, from a graveyard. So this can target your opponent's stuff super easily. I'm just floored by how good Reanimate is, and I can't wait to see it be cheaper. Rise of the Dark Realms, also way too expensive. $25. Now it's a 9 mana sorcery. It's way over the top, fun splashy card. Don't think it's that good in Commander because, you get everything back. It's 9 mana. It's so much mana. It is super fun. Sangromancer is a role player, definitely fine. Shieldred. Oh man, the hits just keep on coming. Another $25 card. Shieldred is amazing in Reanimator strategies, just super punishing if it stays on the battlefield. And really all you got to do is edict a few people, get a creature back, and this becomes just this game-winning effect. So good. Let's move on to red. Again, not as much stuff that I'm excited about in red because red is a little bit more aggressive. Chain Lightning, some people would be excited about that. I keep going down. Dualcaster Mage, not expensive. I wasn't excited about it. Atali was just reprinted in Commander 2020 and got down to $3. So now it's going to be $2 or $1. Let's make this thing bulk. It's awesome. If we keep going, Flametongue Kavu is going to be amazing in this format, but in other formats, it's like Maw. Goblin Chieftain is great. Let's get this cheap because giving other goblins haste is going to combo with that 6 mana Goblin General that we have so that you can attack and just win the game out of nowhere. Here's, by the way, Goblin Rally. Remember how I said that 4 dogs for 4 mana was pretty good because we already pay 5 mana for 4 goblins, and I would play that. Hellrider is fine in go wide decks, but really it's an aggressive strategy. Krenko, let's get Krenko cheap too. Again, Mystery Booster got it down to $250. This will get it down even lower. Love it. Lathliss wasn't that expensive to begin with, but it went really, really well in Dragon decks. I have it in my Dragon deck. It's super fun. Okay, also in red, we got some Minotaurs being reprinted. This Rageblood Shaman, 1 red, 2/3. Other Minotaurs you control get +1/+1 and have trample. This was not an expensive card. 27 cents. Oh man, I gotta make that Minotaur deck. By the way, Rapacious Dragon, I've kind of like this. The idea that I'm paying 5 mana, but then getting 2 of it back. I play this in my Dragon deck. And basically this only costs 4 mana and I get 2 of them back. So I find that it's really it's a good thing to trigger Lathliss with and trigger everything else because it can kind of ramp me into my bigger dragons. So I think that Rapacious Dragon is underplayed. Sin Prodder is a budget card that I've really liked, and Seismic Elemental is a super budget card that I've also really liked. Seismic Elemental is gonna be 8 cents, 6 cents, so cheap. But the idea that you can pay a 5 mana 4/4 and just be look, Creature of the Flying can't block. It's like a big falter effect. For aggressive decks are really good. Sin Prodder, you basically force your opponents to take damage or you get to draw cards. And I like the idea of forcing damage through. 35 cents. Really solid stuff. Thermo Alchemist for these Spells Matter decks. Young Peasy for Spells Matter decks. Into green. Green has some of the cards I'm most excited about. Like Reanimate, I'm really excited about, but let's keep going to green. Assault Formation. This wasn't that expensive to begin with, like under $1, but it's good that there's more of it out there, and I really like that strategy. If they're pushing it here and giving it into the hands of kind of newer players in this, I mean, I don't know if this is Jumpstarts for newer players because, I mean, there's so many complicated mechanics in here and powerful cards, but it means that they're supporting this Toughness Matters archetype, which is good. Brindleshoot. Anyway, sorry. Champion of Lambhold, solid card. This was up a little bit high. No, not really. But basically, you just keep playing creatures and then become unblockable. It's going to be a win condition in a lot of different decks. Craterhoof Behemoth! A $40 card. And it was 50 bucks. And it came down and it's a $40 mythic. Craterhoof wins games. It's a broken card. And it's a boring card. Okay. Elvish Archdruid. I really like that this is getting cheap as well because this is a powerful effect. 3 mana, 2/2, Anthem, and give you tons of mana because it gives you a green for every elf you control. Just very, very good. Explorer should be cheap. Ghalta. This was reprinted a couple times as well. It was in Game Nights. It was a promo, tons of different stuff, but still happened to have that $8 price. So get Ghalta. Ghalta's great. Okay, Inspiring Call, great for +1/+1 counter decks. I'm Lurking Predators, man. This is a fun commander card right here, and one that was sitting around $7. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, people cast spells all the time. Reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, just put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, you may put that card in the bottom of your library. So your opponents just keep casting spells. They can't not cast spells. And you just keep churning through your deck and just plopping creatures onto the battlefield. If this gets one creature, then it's fine. And if it messes with your opponents casting their spells, that's great. If it gets a creature, scries 2, and prevents your opponents from casting a few spells, yeah. But many times you're going to see this card getting 3 or 4 huge creatures. Momentous Fall. Instant, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to its power, and gain life equal to its toughness. I really wish that this was less mana. You usually hold this up as defense against removal. Some people do this in big Ghalta decks. So you could just hey, Ghalta's super cheap. I'm going to draw 12 anyways. But it's cheap. It was 50 cents or something like that. Let's talk about the reprint. Oh my gosh. Oracle of Moldiah at rare. Never reprinted since Zendikar. Above $40 for this elf. And reprinted here. Oh my gosh. This card is very good in Commander because it is card draw and ramp together in one card. And that is what we care about most. Whenever you play a land off the top of your library, you are drawing a card because you're getting your land drop and not having to use something in your hand. And then when you play an additional land, you're ramping. So this is exactly what Commander is all about. It's still going to be expensive just because everyone wants this in every green deck. It's super duper good. Okay, I'm also excited about Primeval Bounty. This was a little bit too expensive, for what it was. How come it's $10 and this one's $5? Jeez. Anyways, it's just the definition of a value engine. Cast a creature, create a beast. Non-creature, put 3+1/+1 counters. Play a land, gain 3 life. Is it good? It's fine if you can get it down, but look, it's 6 mana. You get it down, and how many more turns is the game gonna last? So it's okay. Primordial Sage is not, they cost 6 mana, and we have 4 mana versions of this effect. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Some people want lots of this effect, so it's fine, but it's not the 4 mana version, and that's what I really like. Rampaging Brontodon is just a big old dinosaur. Ravenous Baloth is a beast that has you gaining life, which is fine. Rishkar was not expensive to begin with, but I really, really like this because it's like a 3-mana mana dork, and I think I talked about it with the Core 21 mana dork that was 3 CMC, the 3-mana one, that they're fine in Commander. A lot of times we're not ramping into 3s, we're ramping into 5s and 6s. And so Rishkar, being a 3-drop that can essentially upgrade 2 of your creatures into mana dorks and ramp you into sort of a big, big impactful spell is something that I'm totally interested in. Oof. Green, man. Green is crazy because we have another one. Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. This was a $30 card, dropped down to $20, and hopefully it gets a little bit lower because this card is great. Basically, if you play a big creature and it's the biggest creature out there, you draw a card, okay? And this means that your opponents could draw some cards. But most importantly, green tap, add X mana of any combination of colors where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. This produces a lot of mana, like a lot of mana. I had a Selvala deck and it was good and powerful and won games. And there are super competitive versions of Selvala that just go crazy in the mana production and do some insane things. Like, this is a powerful effect. Soul of the Harvest, again, it lets you draw cards. This is not an expensive card either, but you know, it's over $1, so let's get it down to like 50 cents. Put it in budget decks. Thragatusk used to be crazy good, now it's just fine. But Uvenvald Hydra, I was so annoyed when the price of this went up. You know, $7? No, this card is great. 6 mana reach, power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control, so this can naturally get huge, especially in lands matter decks. And then when it enters the battlefield, search for any land, you know, and put it on the battlefield tapped. That means it can get your Gaia's Cradles, it can get your Cabal Coffers, it can get your Mazovits, it can get your Field of the Deads, it could get your Lotus Field thing. I don't know, it can get so many different things, and it's all about the utility. And starting off, it's just a fine card to begin with. Okay, we're wrapping up here. Zendikar's Royal, 5 mana, creates 2/2s. You know, we had that white enchantment at the very top of the list, and you think, how many 2/2s do you need for this to be good? Again, I think that you need a lot, and so some people really like Zendikar's Royal, and I think you need to have a lot of lands under the battlefield. Let's go to multicolored. The only one that I really care about is Maelstrom Archangel. Wooburg for a 5/5 flyer. Basically, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. I really, really wanted this to be legendary, to just be like, all right, you know, if I hit you, things are going to get bad. Very goofy angel, and hard to find a deck to fit it into. Not a lot of artifacts that I care about. Like Hedron Archive, I think is good. I'm glad that it got a reprint, but it was never too expensive. Like, I want it to be 10 cents instead of 75, but you know. I think that Dreamstone Hedron, I used to play it, and now I think it's just way too clunky because I never want to be ramping at 6. Just never. Herald's Horn is a good re-inclusion because it was up to like $8. Goes really well in sort of tribal decks, but ultimately I'm a little bit nervous about how much tribe you have and how much tribe synergy you have, because sometimes I think if you have too much tribe synergy, like, you lose out on what you need. Scarecrow is recursion. You can sacrifice it to draw a card. You can also pay 4, return target artifact creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this can get your battle spheres straight back to the battlefield. Unstable Obelisk. This goes in a lot more commander decks than you think, and not just these ones. So I'm excited about, you know, this being a really cheap card that people pay attention to. And then finally we have these two, which are crazy. Phyrexian Tower already saw a reprint recently in Ultimate Masters, but before that, it was all the way back at Urza Saga. And so it was up pretty high, and then finally it was brought down a little bit, and now it's going to be brought down a little bit more. Again, creatures are disposable, so turning a creature into 2 mana instead of just 1 is quite good. Riptide Laboratory. Again, this is another card that was pretty expensive, and now it's going to be printed at a reasonable cost. And there are so many wizards that you can combo with this. Like, Venser is just one of them. Like, you know, play Venser, tap it, return it to your hand. like Snapcaster Mage, you know, just return a wizard to your hand. Inala decks really want to bounce their wizards so they can play them again. The new, like there's so many different wizards out there that have ETB effects. So this is going to be really, really good in many of them. All right. And that has been my whirlwind edition of Jumpstart. You know, not as many new cards. Like we're talking about, you know, 8 cards from white, you know, 6 cards, new cards in black, 4 in, you know, or 4 in black, 6 in blue, you know. So we're not talking about a crazy number of new cards, but I feel like they're impactful. Like going back, I care about this Pegasus. You know, this is fine in the flyer deck. You know, I care about this mill one, this flyers one. These are cool Sphinxes. Like this is a powerful, you know, warlock. You know, this is a powerful edict. Everyone cares about tiny bones. You know, big goblin for the goblin decks, minotaur decks, you know, devil decks. More toughness matters, fight matters, you know, a doubling season. Like, yeah, I just mentioned a lot of stuff that people are going to care about. And so I think that Wizards did a really great job of just putting out a set that is a good balance of fun, dogs and unicorns and flying and these archetypes that we care about, giving us amazing reprints, like the reprints. Whew, so good. But then also these new cards, they're just interesting enough and are signposts for people like us to build stuff. The mill deck, the pirate, like it gives, I can almost point to all these cards and find out what deck they go into. And so I think that that's really interesting. And you know what? I'm excited to get my hands on these cards because there's a lot of them that I'm going to use in decks. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a long sort of set review, but hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and please give me that thumbs up, share, comment. I don't know. Just do nice things. My name is DJ. This is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel. We're supported by Cool Stuff Inc. They are very cool. We're also supported by Patreon. Thank you, patrons. You're amazing. And thank you for watching this. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.